Hello, I'm SeafoodSource Editor Sean Murphy, and welcome to another edition of SeafoodSourceTV, the bi-weekly video blog where we bring you news, information, and insights into the world of the seafood industry. For both seafood industry insiders and the general public alike, it's a common belief that environmental lobbyists and the corporate world are not known to work together well. That didn't stop James Anderson, fisheries and aquaculture advisor to the World Bank, together with a handful of other organizers, from suggesting getting leaders of the environmental lobby together with captains of the seafood industry to work toward a common goal. A lot of people were convinced this effort was doomed from the start, but 2 weeks ago, this group of leaders, referred to as a blue ribbon panel, proved everyone wrong. It turns out that they not only could they stand to be in the same room together, but they managed to hammer out a set of principles and guidelines that could very well shape millions of US dollars worth of fishery improvement projects for years to come. The panel's report, Indispensable Oceans, Aligning Ocean Health and Human Well-Being, is being hailed as a balance between the financial needs of the world's fisheries and the need to protect marine life. Jim joins us today via Skype from Washington to talk with us about what was behind the report and what he and the panel hope the report will mean for the future of the world's fisheries. Jim, thanks for joining us today on SeafoodSource TV.
Well, thank you.
Now, this report, these issues have been around for a long time, the idea of industry being in conflict with the environment. What was the catalyst to bring you and your fellow organizers together and say, let's look to do this now? What started it?
Well, the fact is the World Bank wants to reduce poverty and have sustainable growth. It wants fisheries and other ocean investments to succeed. And our portfolio globally has been growing rapidly. I mean, our portfolio in lending is over $800 million now. So as we're putting that portfolio together, we recognize the only way to succeed is if the business succeeds as well as the environmental sustainability succeeds. So that led to the creation of the Global Partnership for Oceans to basically bring in people, the environmental lobby and environmentalists and the private sector to help countries build industries which were viable and sustainable. That was the sort of catalyst of what we had to do. And then we said, well, this shouldn't be, managed by the bank or run by the bank. We need to bring the people from the outside and have them advise us as what's the best way forward. And that's why we decided to create a blue ribbon panel.
It's a pretty impressive panel. I was looking at the list again today. You got a list of 14 people from all walks of the seafood industry and from the environmental world. I mean, just a couple of highlights. The World Wildlife Fund, obviously a well-known environmental activist group, and there were a number of scientists and ecologists on that list as well. And also, there were some pretty major companies that are no strangers to SeafoodSource.com. Thai Union Frozen Products, their CEO was there, as well as CEOs from Bumblebee and Highliner. Very big names and very big companies, and a very diverse range. I mean, as we said from the top, these are groups that don't often work together. What do you think was the key to getting these guys to sit down together and actually, look face to face and work toward a common solution?
Well, it really took a lot of work, actually, to get everybody together. But we selected this panel. Basically, the groups that wanted to help the bank develop a global partnership for oceans nominated people from around the world, the best of the best, including business people and others. And then from that, the people that have been advised us selected sort of their best panel, including business people. So that's how we got our list. Then when we talked to the business and others, we said, look, hundreds of people who really care about oceans think it's important that you should be involved. And I basically gave my sort of personal commitment that this was not a staged operation. This was not, a setup. This was an opportunity for everybody to come to the table with mutual respect and to listen to what the other side has to say and hopefully come up with a statement, really a statement that isn't that unusual, but the fact is everybody, the environmental groups, the nations that were represented on this panel, and the business community could say, we agree this is the way forward. And so, given that we had an honest playing field, a respectful playing field, the National Academy of Sciences was subcontracted to organize and manage these sessions, and we had a great chair. That's how come it worked, in fact, because there was a lot of mutual respect, a lot of understanding that nobody at the table wants to destroy the oceans. Nobody at the table is out for a quick buck. Everybody at the table cares about sustainable growth and a future which is going to be great for multiple generations, whether they're on the environmental side or on the business side. And in fact, in the long run, they're both the same side.
Clearly, they did find common ground based on the report that came out, and that's available, by the way, on the partnership's website, as we've seen. We've talked about the name of it already. Without going into a lot of detail on the report, can you tell us just what some of, maybe in your own words, what some of the key principles or the key takeaways should be from it as people peruse this information?
Well, the first thing is that sort of fundamental building block is very simple, is that if you want to preserve biodiversity and have appropriate conservation in the oceans, you have to deal with the problem of the people. In other words, you have to have viable businesses. You have to have viable communities. Because if those communities aren't working, and if they're not functioning, and if they're hungry and poor, your marine protected area is not going to work. So that's the first thing, that people accept that. Then there were, going from that, we developed, well, the Bloom panel developed, 5 principles by which we can prioritize areas of investment. And since there's limited funding, you can't do everything all the time. So these 5 principles are associated with whether the projects would contribute to, well, first of all, enhance sustainability and health of the oceans. Second of all, whether they're economically, socially viable and equitable projects. Third, whether the government is ready. In other words, there's enabling legislation that can actually let some of these good things happen on the ocean. 4, whether or not we can compare these in terms of the rate of return on investment and whether they're economically viable, socially acceptable. And last, whether there's a capacity there and the willingness to get the capacity there, if there isn't there, in terms of human capacity, monitoring capacity, and whether it can actually be scaled up, not just a little village thing, but something that can scaled up regionally to really make a big difference, and really hopefully push the envelope in terms of innovation when it comes to the ocean health and ocean productivity for economic and human well-being. So.
Now, lastly, looking forward, and I know that the actual details will be up to the partnership ultimately, but in your mind, what do you hope will be done with this information, or how do you hope the partnership will use this report and this collaboration in its work forward?
Well, first of all, the Global Partnership for Ocean will have various types of assets, significant assets, which will be deployed in terms of both sort of knowledge products and information, but also in terms of investments on the ground. Those need to be leveraged with the investments of partners, private and other partners, on the ground as well. So first of all, this report can be used to prioritize those investments and do projects which sort of get at the triple bottom line, that is ecology, economics, and community. And so the prioritization we have there will help assure that. And then there are also some conditions on when we implement these projects, the kind of information we will need, the kind of nature of the projects we're talking about. This will guide that. And it will more than guide the GPO. It really could guide any institution or nation. It could help guide NOAA. It could help guide FAO. It could help guide the nation of Mauritius, we hope.
Okay. A lot of potential long-range effects here, and we'll definitely be watching it on SeafoodSource.com. Jim Anderson, thanks so much for your time today.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Anderson, he is a fisheries and aquaculture advisor, the fisheries and aquaculture advisor to the World Bank, talking to us today about a new report coming out that will hopefully be guiding, or they expect to be guiding, investment and fisheries improvement projects worldwide in the future. And if you want to learn more about this report and what it may mean for the fisheries sector in the future, keep watching SeafoodSource.com because in early December we're going to be having a webinar on this subject. Jim and I will be there along with a couple of key members of the panel to talk about just what this report is actually going to say in detail, and talking maybe a little bit more detail about what the GPO will be doing with the report in the future. That's going to be in December on SeafoodSource.com. We'd love to have you there as attendees, and we'll also take questions via text as well. Attendance is free, but you do have to register, so be sure to check out SeafoodSource.com. Check out the resources tab at the top of the page and click webinars, and keep watching for more information on how you can register. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back in 2 weeks for another edition of Seafood Source TV, where we bring you more news, information, and insights in the world of the seafood industry. Till then, I'm Seafood Source Editor Sean Murphy saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you online.